Howdy YouTube, how are you? Hope you are doing your YouTube thingy dingy. And let's go get our Twitch people real quick. That looks good. I can live with that. Here we go. Shoot. I cut the stream by accident. I hit the wrong button. This is what it's like trying to be an engineer and be the guy who's on talent, on so-called talent as well. Hang on, sorry. I'm gonna have to restart this OBS. Sorry about this, kids. Okay, here we go. And it's another faultless launch of the Stratosphere Studio, brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com, brought to you by the members at ChankWeger.com, because we don't put out that kind of garbage. How's everybody doing? Sorry about that. That was a bit of a, even by Stratosphere standards, a bit of a lurch into existence. Hope everybody's doing well. It's Monday night. Going to be doing questions tonight, and if we get through the questions quickly, I might do a couple from the chats, and then back I go, because I am chewing up the last few scenes of this script finally. I'm just finally getting it done. I was thinking about that. When you have a big project, if it's something relatively short, 2-3 weeks, something like that, of writing, you can just kind of just get on it, get started and do it. But when it's been something that's been sitting with you for, boy, I don't know, 8 months now, something like that, I would say. More than that. No, less than that. Anyways, a long time. I was trying to describe to myself how it feels, because there are times when you're just tearing it up and other times when it's just like you just can't do anything. And I realized the best way to explain it is, I'll show you the new t-shirt in just a second, John. I realized that the best way to describe this this long project, like a book or something like that, as a writer is, for me, there are guys with a lot more discipline than me, and they just bull on through it, but I gotta be feeling it. So it's like you start working on it and you got the wind at your back and you're just sailing, you're just cruising, you got all the sheets out, you just tighten up all the sheets, and the sails are billowing and canvas is flowing and you're just cruising along and you're feeling great, and then you slow down a little bit, pick up a little bit, slow down a little bit. Then there's other times when you're just plain becalmed, where you don't really feel any motivation to write it, but you don't feel any real particular reason not to either. You just lack in energy. But there are other times, and I just came out of this I just came off a 3-week spell of this, where I went from becalmed to a let's just say unfavorable headwinds, where now it's like actively avoiding doing it because I just couldn't get myself back into the story, and I was losing confidence in it. So Natasha recommended this Grammarly thing, which I sneered at when she recommended it to me because I don't need a machine to tell me how to write. And surely enough, I've not been using this AI to show me how to write. I've been using this AI to show me how to not write. So starting about 4 or 5 days ago, I had to go back through the entire script. It's about 200 pages. And copy every single block and I mean every single block of scene description that I'd done for the movie script, and take it over to Recurly. Now, as I've mentioned before, last time I finished a movie script, I did nothing but movie scripts. I've done 8 of them. But the last one I finished was in 2007. And since 2007, I've written everything else. I've written all the firewalls and the afterburners and the history series and all the commentaries, all of it. So when I sat down to write this movie again, I was just basically, writing way too much description for a movie. Movie's supposed to be just terse. So I would take like a big old block paragraph of, I know I talked about this before. Yeah, that was Aurora. Exactly right, Dave. Big old block, 4 or 5 paragraphs of this intricate details of this dogfight or whatever, and I just pop it onto pages, and then I would just send it over to Grammarly, and I would just type in shorten or concise or succinct. If you type in concise, succinct, and shorten, you get 3 different results. I picked the one I liked the best, unless I like the first one, and then I copied it and pasted it, put it back in the script, and then when I put the AI shortened versions, I just said, why didn't I write that? Why didn't I just write that? That's so simple. I got that to the point where it's about page 186, and I've been working on new stuff for the last 2 days now, and I'm just tearing through it like a wood chipper. I'm really getting through it. I think I've got 4 or 5 scenes left to go. Anyway, that is been something that's been holding me up for months. And I've said it's almost done. So I'm not going to tell you it's almost done. I'm just going to tell you when it's done. But I got a good feeling it'll be done by Thursday, and we'll see. Bill Time does not behave in any fashion that's predictable to anybody, least of all Bill. Somebody wanted to see my new T-shirt. Whoa, my focus. What happened to my focus? I de-resed myself. How do I'm trying to remember how I fixed that. See, nothing happened. All of my buttons are green. I didn't touch anything. It just plain did it. Does that help you? Come on, come back. No? It is a resolution issue. I can see the pixels. Well, what the devil do I do about that? I can try to, let me see, is it doing it on YouTube? Yep. So it's a camera issue. Let me tickle the camera. I'm going to take off this little webcam setting thing I have. No difference whatsoever. All right, I'm going to experiment on YouTube. Everybody hang on. I didn't do it. It's not my fault. I feel like Harrison Ford. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. Let me see if I can video capture device here. I'll try it on Twitch first. And I'll go to the settings. I may need to just readjust the resolution. Just did it. Try turning it off and turning it back on again. Excellent idea, Roadrunner, but if I do that, I'll lose both streams, and I don't want to do that. So, let's see. Let's go to properties and see if I can monkey around with the video capture device. Monitor off. No. Okay, hang on. We'll get it. We will get it. I swear we will get it. All right, so I want you. Video capture device, you. And it's exciting, isn't it? I know it is. I know it's I can hardly contain my enthusiasm. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. First I'm going to do it on YouTube. I'm going to keep the stream going. I'm not going to cut the audio. I'm just going to keep the video, take the video out, restart the video, see if that does it. So we're going to keep on talking. Should go to black. Everybody be cool. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. No, that's just the mic. Okay, here we go. So let's see if I can delete that. Oh, okay. No wonder. Sorry, it's over here. My bad. Logitech Brio 1920 by 1080. Let's try 1280 by 720. Hey, wow! Both of them at the same time. Now, all I should do is in YouTube, I should just stretch this box out a little bit. And we might have ourselves a party here. All right, hey, look at that. Mr. Technical Genius. That's what I am. I'm a broadcast genius. And not anything gets past me without being thoroughly checked and pre-checked and double-checked. But again, my point being, I didn't do anything. All right, so here's we got I went out and bought like 20 T-shirts because everybody's getting tired of looking at the old ones. Me too, and so this will be the spring to summer fashion statement. So this is the first one. I like this very much from T Public, and it's kind of cute. Let's see here. I gotta get the camera back up. It has a Major Mace Mattingly vibe to it, except it's really gorgeous. I mean, it's really just beautiful. So I saw that, and I had to get it. I got all of these things from a place called T Public, including this little bitchin' thing here. Check this out. And I think I might have told you last week that I was also I also bought a T-shirt with the coolest slogan I've ever seen ever, and it's on a pin. I'm going to hold it up. I've got it on a T-shirt as well, but I just can't sit on this any longer. So this is my favorite pop culture mantra. It's tiny. It's only about this big. But it's the only bumper sticker I put on my car. It's not even really a bumper sticker, it's just a sticker. It's cut out. And it just says this, and I just love it. It's just my favorite thing in the world. Ready? Ready? Here we go. Isn't that epic? I love it. I love it. I love it. Too many Spocks, not enough Kirks. That's exactly the problem with our society. Too many big brains that are sure they know much more than everybody else, trying to do all the planning and all the decision making, and nobody there with the clean sense of common sense and willpower to take the advice of these scientists and then work that into a real world solution. Too many Spocks, not enough Kirks. Love it. Roadrunner says too many Picards, not enough Kirks. That's now the flame war begins. So anyway, everything else is going along just dandy here, and I will be very, very happy when I get this thing I've been carrying off on my back for I don't know 8 months, 9 months now. But I don't want to. It ended up, by the way, I'm looking at this. I'm talking to you, Frank Luke, script that I was working on just before I looked up and said, "Oh my gosh, it's 5:59." I realize now it's probably going to be 3 movies, or one. I'm just going to write the story. That's what I'm going to do. I've spent enough time worrying about it. Just going to write it. I have been writing it. So now it actually looks like it's not going to be a 3-part movie, and I'm not speaking for Daily Wire. I'm just talking about the first draft of the script. But the first draft of the script is part 1 is his childhood up until the point where he leaves for the war. Part 2 is everything up to when he starts his streak. And part 3 is the actual streak where he just does it. So I don't think Daily Wire is going to want to do a 3-part series. But now this is just between us chickens, mind you. Don't be spreading this around or anything. Because, the great thing about the internet is if you make people promise to keep it under wraps, then there's no way it'll get out. But if it turns out that it's just either not right for Daily Wire or too big or they're not going to get to it for 7 years or whatever the case may be, I may try to do some poking around, find some producers, maybe think about crowdfunding it, and I'll buy the script back. And he'll turn a profit because otherwise, forget about it. So that's what you get. What does Bill's movie and Fusion Power have in common, says Bart Strickland? Well, they're both just around the corner with a big grin. They are. And they're also power sources of unimaginable power. That's the kind of writing he writes. There's not a word that is duplicated or repeated. Never will you ever see redundancy in any of the statements that I make. You will never see it. There you go. What are we doing for your birthday? Well, for our birthday, it looks like almost finalized. We still have another couple weeks, but as I said before, Plan on being in Fort Worth, Texas, for the eclipse on the 8th. So Natasha's birthday's on the 6th, mine's on the 7th. Makes it easy for me to remember, so I don't have to forget anything. And our wedding day is also on New Year's Eve, so smart. So we're planning on being there. So what I think we'll do is shove off from here on the morning of the 6th, stop somewhere around New Mexico, some halfway roughly. Get up on the 7th, drive to the final. We don't want to say the final destination, but to the the Stratoclipse command center, and then that'll be the night of the 7th. Maybe we can all hang out and what's that line? Foster Brooks line. Sit around a campfire, roasting our weenies, and of course, warming our buns. Genius. And then we'll be monitoring. We will have teams working around the clock to monitor the weather, and we will, since the eclipse is in the afternoon, I want to say it's around 1 o'clock local time. We will be looking for any big fronts. If it turns out there's big weather fronts, then we're going to be moving, man. I'm not saying you can't do anything about it. If the weather breaks, then how about if we I'll fix this in post. Okay, and 3, 2. There's nothing you can do about the weather, but you can try. And if it turns out that we're out of solid, high level cover, then when it gets to be close to being actual go time, and I mean like 85% totality, then it's time to have the cars racing, and if there's cumulus clouds in the sky, we just we're going the opposite direction that the clouds are. We're not going to try and outrun the clouds because they'll catch up with us. We'll just head the other way and just position it. It's so amazing. Fort Worth only has 2 minutes and 43.8 seconds of totalitarity. This is the 8th time I've not been able to say totality. I've been talking about totalitarianism so much that I totally can't talk about totality without saying totalitarianism. It's just totally ridiculous. I mean, it's literally ridiculous. Literally ridiculous. Hi. So anyway, so we're gonna have fun. We'll have fun. We'll go out and we'll do a little. I like the idea of doing a weenie roast actually outside. That'd be kind of fun, wouldn't it? Like a kind of a sort of a general, barbecue-y kind of. Oh, for the love of Pete. Okay. No. I understand. You want to play like this, camera? That's fine. You want to be this way? That's fine. I fine. But what I'm seeing here is, this is evidence that I'm not as quite as incompetent as I appear to be, because things just happen here. Must be my magnetic personality. Properties. Use the preset. Let's turn the preset off. Okay, let's turn the resolution on. Oh, we could go to 4K. Let's try 1920 by 1080. There it is. Okay, now the preset's off. I didn't touch anything, didn't do anything. There you go. All right, so let's get to some questions. Why don't we, now that we've covered all of the critically important stuff, and I'll bring that little webcam app back. Sometimes helps. I'll just darken it down a little bit. Man, I'll be happy to get on with some of this other stuff we've been talking about forever. I'd be very happy indeed. Yeah, that's a little groovier. Got kind of a groovy vibe to it. Oh, I forgot. On the Facebook page, I said tonight on Stratosphere Studios, True Tales of Adventure, Bill's epic battle with the giant squid. And I'm sorry to say that most of the giant squid sucker marks are gone. You can still see this one. It's actually, it's good lighting in here. And up in here, I got some here. I got one here. I got 3 on my back. I was fighting this giant squid with my harpoon, and the Nautilus was getting ready to submerge, and it ripped my shirt off and stuck its little claws in me. And after what seemed like days of battling back and forth, I managed to get that harpoon right between its beady little eyes, and I emerged the victor, went back down into the Nautilus, and here we are. Actually, the truth of it is, Hilo Aviator says, I was not excited about the Eclipse until after I saw it. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'd wanted to see one my entire life, but that was just because I was curious. Once I saw one, I realized I have to see all of them again. H. Howdy says, what happened to your interviews? Well, the interviews are still waiting for me to finish this Fargan script, which I expect will happen this week, and then we will get right on the first of them. And we will be moving quick. I've got the set all set up. I've got everything I needed, projection screen. I've got the new studio computer. I got everything except the time to finish this thing, and I am kicking this thing out the door, and then we are getting on with this and Major Mace Mattingly and things to come, and so help me God, I mean it, I'm not joking. So I'm way behind with those things, and I'm sorry about that, but that's a great line, Hilo. Okay, so let's do some questions, why don't we? On our 85% finished website, which is, is the motto of BillWhittle.com is minimum viable product. Hey. Yeah, I'm just curious. Yeah. Just check the election betting odds. Donald Trump's at 50%, Joe Biden at 32%. It's going to be an interesting year, kids. Okay, here we go. Got a lot of cleaning up on the website to do. Lots and lots of little itty-bitty things that need to get straightened out. Okay, here we go. Strutopop questions for 2/26/24. Well, that's today. How shocking. Okay, we have an Ian Nolan. Oh, Ian Nolan is you know what's amazing about you guys who are curating these streams is you're curating the people who curate the streams, and I don't even know about it. I don't touch it, which is why it's happening. I am so grateful to all of you for this. For Marusha, and I haven't seen Marusha in a while. Anybody seen Marusha around? And Eric and everybody else, thank you very much. Very, very grateful. Okay, so we got an Ian Nolan, we got a broke college student. Oh, this one's another kind of cool one. We got an Eric Blake, we got a Ray Juarez, we have a Chris Taylor, we have a Roadrunner, and that'll do it. I think that will take enough time for us to, we'll do one or two from the comments because I said I would. All right, here we go. So this is Ian Nolan's second attempt. By gosh. If you're planning on going through Sedona, we've written up a whole guide for the area to go along with our designer house, which we are Airbnb-ing to try and recoup some of its cost. Since I'm writing a post, I might as well ask a question. It seems like a resurgence of faith is just about the only thing that can save us at this point. Happily, there are early glimmers that such a thing is starting to happen. Are you seeing anything similar? I am. I think that this is like a two-part equation. And it's the same for people becoming conservatives as it is for them, becoming more religious. Usually that means becoming Christians or becoming more Christian or whatever. I think in parallel with the political situation where people are just leaving the Democratic Party because it's just gotten so nutty that people know that things are coming apart, and they are. And that's why we're heading into the actual crisis part of the crisis. And I think they understand that somehow science, which is designed to calculate the distance of the moon using laser reflectors and the speed of light, somehow that is not providing them with the spiritual and emotional strength that they thought it might, because they believe in science, which is like saying I believe in my razor or my screwdriver. So the first step in people becoming like a great awakening, spiritual awakening, is discontent with the status quo, and in this case that would mean spiritually. And I don't think there's a lot of people in the country who are spiritually contented unless they are already fairly deeply religious and they have their church to fall back on, or whatever, a temple, or whatever the case may be. So yes, now I have, like all people with strong libertarian leanings, I have a deeply seated, certainly not a revulsion, not even close to that, but a deeply seated sense of nervousness, concern, that people will think that I know what it means, because I know, because all of my friends are Christians. So I know what they mean by spiritual revival. People who don't know what they mean think it's time for everybody to go to Jesus camp, and that's not what it means at all. But one of the real keys to the pathology that we're seeing out there right now, Ian, is that obviously no one's responsible for anything. No one's taking personal responsibility. But on some level, I think a lot of that is because they don't have anybody to be responsible to or for. If you drive drunk and you're pretty much by yourself, and all your friends are Tinder friends or Instagram friends or whatever, and you drive drunk and and you smash into a tree or something, okay, well, who's going to care about that? Nobody's going to care. But if you do that exact same thing and you're a member of a church group, not only are they going to care about you, they're going to, in terms of are you okay, they're going to care about what on earth got you to the point where you thought you could drive a car like that. And so you have to be answerable to people. Now, when I say you have to be answerable, you don't have to be answerable. You can leave. But any sense of community, and the smaller the community, the stronger this is, increases personal responsibility. People don't want to look bad in front of their friends, and they don't want to look bad at church next week. And honestly, that may sound like such a little thing, but I bet you it's 80% of it. This society is built on fundamentally virtuous population. The genius of this society is that the virtuous people who designed this virtue society were not idealistic. They were practical men with an idealistic vision, and they understood that while the government would the government would be a government for virtuous people, and would work with no other. Now, he actually said religious people, but that's kind of what they were getting at. There's also, this society is not designed to depend on everybody being virtuous. It's just dependent on the majority of people being virtuous most of the time. Most of the people, most of the time. Because there are obviously great many, in fact, the Constitution is nothing but a detailed attempt to limit people's ability to wallow in their own crapulence. So, I'm just not used to that being that low. So, yes, I'm seeing signs of it. I'm not seeing people, as I say, rushing out to be, lining up in church. Although I don't really go to church, so people who do may be seeing more of that. I don't know if anybody out there is seeing more, walk-ins, pardon the expression. But there's no question that people are not satisfied with what's going on now. I mean, none. And it turns out that the scalpel that people claim they believe in is not a religion, provides them no comfort, provides them no spiritual connection, and provides them no sense of place or purpose. Because place and purpose are interesting and necessary, is what I meant to say. And the idea that you can have humans without place or purpose is to not understand how the human animal is constructed. Steve Whoop says far fewer people than after the chickens were made plain during COVID. So apparently, during COVID, the church attendance went way down. Well, part of that might be because the churches were actually closed by in many cases by the authority of the state, which seems to me to be a pretty clear violation of your First Amendment privileges. But obviously, safety trumps that. Safety trumps everything. We will be if we're if you ever find yourself up against an execution squad and you're facing a wall, then you need to understand that you're being executed for your own safety, and the safety of others. That's the golden goose for them. Safety. Safety, safety, safety. Well, we want our kids to be safe from shooting. We'll take away your guns. We want people to be safe from pandemics. We'll take away your right to travel, or take away your right for assembly, take away your right to religion. We'll take all of this away in order to give you safety. And unfortunately, large numbers of people, including some people who as a group, not talking about individuals, but what I saw during the pandemic was a significant number of people who I thought I could count on just kind of taking a knee to this whole thing. And so, first of all, they may come back, and if they're chickens, then they're chickens. And if they're chickens, then they need the support more than the people who had the guts to stick it out. But I do think that something is coming, something good in that regard. In fact, I know something good is coming. I was writing a scene yesterday where they're getting ready to go up, and Frank has just gotten his first balloon kill, and his plane, he had to ditch his plane at an outlying airfield. He got his new plane, brand new Spad, and it's the one he flew most of his missions in, with red, white, and blue with an eagle on the side, and number 26 and the checkerboard racing stripes. Really badass looking thing. So he goes to there's a purpose to this. So he goes to his crew chief and his rigger and his armorer, and he's been having problems with guns jamming, and he says to his sergeant, to Saunders, he says, "Wobbly, we got to do something about this." He was just banging on these things used to carry a rubber mallet. He says, "We got to do something about this, Wobbly." He's talking to his sergeant, and his sergeant says, "Well, I can think of one thing, Lieutenant. I'm just not sure you'd like it very much." "Well, what is it?" "Well, sir, if you really ask me, I think what we ought to do is we ought to unload every single round we have in all of the belts of ammunition. We should just rub a little chicken grease on them and then reload them by hand. That's what I would do if I really wanted to improve this reliability." So next thing you know, you cut to the scene and you're out in the field, and you can see Luke's hangar in the distance, just a little pool of light, there, a dark night, and Luke and his three ground crewmen. Luke, one of the many things I like about Luke was that he had no problem associating with enlisted men. He didn't see any distinction between them and officers. And things were considerably snootier. It was a snootier time back then. So the four of them are singing. I wanted to have them sing a song just to pass the time while they're, while they're greasing up these rounds and putting them back in the cloth belts or whatever they had back then. They might have had the metal disassembling belts, whatever those things are called. In any event, so I wanted to have them singing, and this is one of the reasons why the script takes so long. So I could have them singing something, but Bill goes, "Well, what was the number one song? It was a top pop song in this time of the year in early September of 1918." And it turned out that there were 2 or 3 different versions of "Over There," and all 3 of them were the number one song. So I thought, "No, Over There, how done is that? That's just so done, And then I just thought, well, I think it's overdone because I've seen it so many times, but they wouldn't. And it's got some cool things. So I've got a scene where they're singing "Over There," and they've modified the lyrics, "Over there, spread the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, that Frank is coming, balloons are falling everywhere," that kind of thing. So they're all just having a goof. But in order to get the lyrics, I had to find. Actually, what they're singing, I got that wrong. What they're actually singing is "Over here, and we won't go back until it's over here." So I have to go find. This is how the process works. I go find the lyrics for "Over There," and the non-"Over There" lyrics are very strange. "Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Something show the Hun who's the son of a gun." So I got the lyrics for "Over There," written by George Cohen, And in the link for when I'm looking at the lyrics, I see a link to Yankee Doodle Dandy, which is the story of George Cohan, and Jimmy Cagney plays Cohan, and the link is to the very end of the movie, if you've seen it, where by this point he's an old man. He's written a lot of his hits already, like America the Beautiful, I think. And there's a parade going by, and these guys are heading off to war, the Doughboys, and they're marching down the street, and all of the Doughboys are singing over there, and everybody lining the route of the parade is singing over there. They're singing it really loud, and Cagney walks in, kind of walks to the edge of the parade, and kind of somebody pulls him in and says, hey, come on, let's go, old timer. Why aren't you singing? Don't you know the words? Well, he wrote the words and the music. He goes, yeah, I think I know the words. Well, then sing, man, sing. So he starts singing, and you watch these guys going off. Now, here's where things get interesting, because this is directly dealing with your spiritual awakening question, believe it or not. Sorry about that. I'm looking at these kids, these Doughboys. It's got to be about 1917, I would think. And they're all enthusiastically marching off to the Great War. By the time that the Meuse-Argonne offensive was over, we had 26,000 killed in about, I don't know, 9 weeks, maybe 26,000. And I'm looking at this movie from a postmodern perspective. That's not the perspective I want. That's the perspective I'm surrounded by. So I'm looking at these young guys marching down the street, singing this song, and unlike them, I know what they're heading for. And I'm thinking postmodern thoughts like, if these poor bastards only knew, and the whole thing's just a giant adventurism, and all of that cynical postmodern current day thinking that we deal with all the time. But after I ran through that whole, this whole war thing is an illusion, did all of that postmodern stuff that I've been trained to do by modern media, what I was left with was a bunch of people who were, I was left with two things. First of all, on the screen I was left with an entire city full of people, small town full of people, who were all on the same side, all singing the same song, all immensely proud of their country, themselves, and their soldiers. And then I was also realizing, and I'm also looking at a movie about that time, when you're also proud of all these things. And I just realized I'd much rather live than now in terms of attitude. I don't want to. I wouldn't switch where I am now with going off to World War I, mind you. And I'm very grateful that our veterans have made that kind of lifestyle available to me and every other male in this country since the draft. But I just remember being so impressed by how clean everybody was, I mean, I don't mean physically clean, although there was that. Everybody's trim, everybody's in shape, everybody's just, they're not contaminated by this cynicism, And I remember somebody making a case for how the First World War, all the world wars were just essentially just a giant misunderstanding and just a massacre for nothing. And I've got that voice going on the left side of my brain, and then on the right side of my brain I've got the voice saying, just look at them though. I mean, this is how you build a civilization. This is what you'd have to do. So I ended up really, really coming down hard on the pre-modern side of this argument, that yes, they're idealistic, yes, they're nationalistic. I've got no problem with nationalistic. To some degree they're naive, to some degree they're unaware of the horrors that are coming for them, but that's okay. They're going anyway. And they're not coming back until it's over there. Now, you can talk to Europeans about this, and you'll get the same story for World War I and World War II. I'm half British. I mean, I am half British, and my mom was a British subject till the day she died. Although she loved this country very much and lived here for virtually an entire adult life. But I am half British, and what you'll often hear the British say is that America arrived at the end of the wars, both World War I and World War II, got in late, and basically went around bragging that they won the war. In both cases, while all the heavy fighting was done before America got into the war. And that statement is true, but it's also true that it's true. We did win those wars. We didn't believe. Let's take World War I, because that's where I am with Frank Luke's story. The U.S. won that war, even though we did very little fighting in that war. It was the entrance of America into the war that got the clock started, that the Germans could not win. Once America was in the war, with our reserves of manpower and manufacturing, even in 1917 and 18, just the manpower alone was enough to break the German lines, because those guys had been fighting for 4 years, or 3. We just get there off the boat. And by the way, nobody appreciates this about America, but I remember reading this. Doughboys, American World War I soldiers called themselves doughboys. Doughboys were getting off the boats, getting off the ships, the transports in England for World War I. And they were running into cousins whose family had not gone to Great Britain the way that their parents had one generation ago. So what you've got is two genetically identical kids, basically from the same bloodline, and this is repeated millions of times. And the kid that grew up in America, he's one generation away from England. When these American boys got to France and England, they were 4 inches taller than their cousins. 4 inches. That's what one generation of American food and being outdoors, working with your hands. You know, American kids are growing up on farms, and British kids, like my ancestors, are working in coal mines, or they're working in textile factories, and they're breathing in all this smoke. And in America, everybody's got these blue skies and fresh air, and they're going fishing in the creek, and they're Betty at the dance, and all of it. It's just, there's just nothing that could compete with that. Same thing for Germany. Germany was an industrialized society, and everybody was living in these cities with this horrible smog, and in come these supermen. And they're not just physical supermen, they're spiritual supermen. Just trying to circle back to your question as much as I can, because it's a great question, Ian, and it's kind of an unspoken part of the equation. When these Americans came ashore, they didn't just bring confidence and physical strength and reckless courage, because we did some dumb things that we should have known better, that the British and the French had learned about offensives, but hey, pride comes with that attitude too. But when we came with that kind of optimism, the Europeans were on the verge of just total collapse. All of their optimists, all of their idealists had been killed 2 years earlier in 1916. And the cream of the crop, all the playing fields of Eton kids, all of those up and coming future leaders, they're all lying dead in Flanders fields with poppies growing over them. And in comes this wave of Americans, and not only does that hearten the Allies, but the Germans realize, we've been holding the line, because Germany was on defense the entire war. And now we've fought these guys to a standstill, which is good for them, because they've invaded the countryside. If they can hold the line and you get an armistice, then Germany's gained a ton of territory. But all of a sudden, these Americans start getting off the boat, and once they started fighting against the Americans, and the Americans showed that kind of naive enthusiasm, and just the courage and the energy that they brought to it, Germany basically just collapsed. It collapsed under the weight of 2 relatively minor American offensives, Meuse-Argonne and come on. The salient Musargon and the was it Shemenda Dam? No. Anyway, two relatively small offensives that happened right after each other. Belleau Wood was a subset of one of those offensives. It's just flown out of my head. I used to have it. Anyway, so they find these waves of American boys. No, it wasn't Verdun. It's the something salient. It's just flown out of my head. I had all this stuff down cold. Anyway, am I missing something here? No, okay. So, no, it's not Belleau Wood. It'll come. Somebody will find it. Saint Mihiel. Thank you. I knew it began with that there was an M in it. The Saint Mihiel salient. So they do the Saint Mihiel salient, wipe out this German salient that's been around Verdun, that's been there for 3 years, push them back in 3 days, straighten out the lines, just take tons of territory when the British and the French have been fighting for inches and America's just advanced, 15, 20 miles. And then the Meuse-Argonne offensive, which was a relatively small sector of the line, just punched. The Germans just couldn't deal with it. And morale collapsed, and they surrendered. They didn't really surrender. They just stopped fighting. They just went home. They just said, no. In fact, the German army was broken by these things called the Michael offensives. In the early part of 1918, Ludendorff, who's running the war by this point, says, if we don't win the war now, meaning early spring, January, February, March of 1918, if we don't win the war and end it now, then we have no chance to win because the Americans are coming ashore, tens of thousands every day. So he launched these 3 great Michael offensives, and they rolled the British Army and the French Army all the way back to the Channel, damn near pulled it off. But they stiffened, and they held, and then the Americans come on board and just push them out of the way. So, did America win the war? Yes. Did we do all the fighting? No, by no means. We didn't do all of it or most of it, talking about World War I. But it was the arrival of America that ended the war, forced the Germans into this very risky maneuver. And then when they went back on the defensive, Americans just provided the propeller that just went over the top and ended this thing. And then in World War II, they say the same thing. And my response to both of these is, well, first of all, if America was late to those fights, then we're late to the fights for the same reason that a policeman is late to the scene of a murder. We kind of left Europe in order to get away from all of these endless battles and blood-soaked fields and all the rest of it. But it's fair to say that in World War II, well, it's not just fair to say, it's just true. 70% of the total might of the Germans was defeated by the Russians. Probably somewhere around 10% by the British, and then another 20% by the Americans, roughly. So the Soviets really won World War II in Europe, but we won the war in the Pacific pretty much single-handedly. That's just an entire war going on. It's an entire world war that's covering one hemisphere, and then there's another world war that's covering most of the other hemisphere. And we were about 20% of the Germany victory, but we were 100% or 95% of the Pacific victory. So, yeah. And again, once we got our feet underneath us, we became unstoppable. That's a great point, by the way. Bart's Treasures points out that the Soviets won, but they did it with Western help, technology, and intelligence. Yes, but mostly what they did it with was American Studebaker trucks and boots manufactured in America. We supplied the Soviets with so many things that they did not have for those 41, 40, 42, 43, and into 44. We were supplying them with tons of stuff. We lost a lot of guys in the Merchant Marine being killed on these transatlantic convoys that were for Britain, and also going into Archangel and supplying the Germans. I mean the Soviets. Yes, they like the Airacobra. They liked a lot of stuff that we didn't like, and I kind of like the Airacobra too. I thought it was a cool airplane. All right, hopefully that did it for you there, Ian. Moving on, broke college student. Okay, this man is single-handedly saving Gen Z's reputation amongst the evil boomer crowd. Here we go. Commander Whittle. Nice start. Our new NASA telescope has detected hundreds of thousands of objects moving at a quarter of the speed of light from the outer edges of the Oort cloud. Okay, I see this is a speculative because I thought, how did I not catch that? We believe it to be an alien contact. We can only assume their intentions are hostile and to conquer our world for habitation. In light of this, you've been placed in command of a NATO task force to prepare this planet and the solar system to repel any hostile invasion. All remaining nations have elected to join. What are your plans? Assumptions. Genocidal alien force, no diplomacy. I'm not sure I buy that assumption, but I understand you're setting up the conditions, but I'll get back to that. Technologically advanced, but nothing that violates the known laws of physics, meaning the aliens. Unlimited authority and unlimited access to all available resources, meaning me. No human dissidence, meaning no, fifth column, please kill us last kind of thing. I have a decade before they reach the inner Kuiper belt. That's interesting. And the aliens want to secure space and then follow up with a ground invasion. They want it intact, so no planet-wide destruction. So we're not going to get nuked from orbit just so they can be sure. Okay, so I get what you're going for. And then approaches. Human habitats on other planets and moons, how to handle weapons development, space DARPA, space-based mining and manufacture, how to harden humanity on Earth from orbital attack, continued development or territorial military development, or solely focus on space. Wow. That's a smart guy with a smart question. Let me tell you what my first knee-jerk reaction to this was. The aliens are coming, and it looks like it might be invasion. We have to treat it like it's invasion anyway. I don't remember who said it. It was a general of some kind, I think, some high-ranking general. It's one of my favorite statements ever. But basically, he was talking about the U.S. defense posture, and he said that the day may indeed come when the lion and the lamb lie down together in peace, but if that day ever comes, we better damn sure be the lion. And when I first heard that, I thought, there's nothing I can add to that. That is my philosophy in a nutshell. I would love to have the lion and the lamb lie down together in peace and not have to fight any of these things. But if it turns out that is possible, then I want to damn sure be the lion. So the hypothetical is well, I'll take all of your assumptions as granted because that's the actual question. It constrains a lot of the responses that I would have tried, but we have to play by the rules, and these are the rules. The war's going to be won or lost, not predicated necessarily by the degree in technology, but by the degree in overall practical intelligence. That's what's going to determine the war. If they're more advanced than we are because they've been at it longer and have approximately the same intelligence levels that we do, then we've got an excellent, we virtually got a 100% chance of winning. If, on the other hand, they are, 200 IQs or pushing higher or whatever the case may be, then it's like chimps trying to fight against us. We'll hide here and we'll leave a banana on the trail, which will distract them. It's like, it doesn't work that way. So I'm going to assume that they're more or less at our intelligence level. So they've got a tech advantage over us, and we've got a numbers advantage over them. I don't like being on this side of that equation because that equation has been the equation that I've grown up with. I'd much rather be on the high quality, low numbers side than the high numbers, low quality side, but I didn't get to pick the cards. So the first thing I would start doing is I would start thinking about asymmetrical warfare. If they're getting here from another star system, then that is telling me that the chance of us dealing with them in air-to-air combat, let's say, is the same as somebody getting in the the Wright Flyer and trying to shoot down a Raptor. It's just not going to happen. So you have to start thinking about symmetrically. Um, uh, which I don't, as I said, I don't like being on the side of the insurgency, but that's what you got. Um, I'm going to take away the fifth column aspect of your assumptions, if you don't mind, and I'm going to adjust the game parameters to allow a fifth column of human deserters and traitors, because I got to tell you, I think that is the only thing that would really slow us down. Um, yeah, no, now, let me think for a second. Give me 1 second. Just want to think this through here so I don't get this wrong. So, in the comment section here we have low numbers, high quality was what Nazi Germany had, and that's true. And we beat Nazi Germany, if I recall correctly. So, if they're coming in with with lower numbers of higher tech, that's a profound insight there, young man. Then you would, then your overall strategic position would be good enough. So the Tiger tank was a vastly superior to a Sherman, at least to the original Shermans, in terms of tank versus tank battles. They eventually once they put the big gun on the Sherman Firefly, and then the what was it? Was it I don't know if it was the Pershing. Anyway, they once they started putting big guns on the Shermans, and the size of the gun was limited by the tiny little turret on the Sherman. You can only get so much recoil out of that. But the problem with the Tigers was, especially like the King Tiger and the Panther. I think Panther was probably the best tank of the war. That's what, if I had to go to war in World War II, that's what I'd go into. I'd go to Panzer V. But so yes, you're getting to the point where we're losing 3-1 or 5-1 or 10-1, but we can afford it. That comes back to what we talked about a couple weeks ago about Lincoln's equation, where he said we've just come off of the Battle of Fredericksburg, biggest catastrophe the Union's ever suffered, and if we have another 10 catastrophes like this, the war's over and we win. You just face the arithmetic. You're just going to get outkilled, significantly outkilled. So if you take that, see, this is why people should study history, because it allows you at least to think about questions like this. The Mustang was a great airplane. It was not the equal of the Me-262 in skilled hands, but it didn't have to be, because we had 5 Mustangs for every one of theirs, and plus their technology had weaknesses. You got to land at Me-262, and you got to take off, and they don't land at at 400 and 500 knots. They've got to slow down like everything else. Chuck Yeager shot down an Me-262 when it was on final approach for landing, which allowed Yeager to say, which I think was an awesome thing for Chuck Yeager to say, because he's an awesome guy, even though I don't think he was a good guy, nice guy. Chuck Yeager said, "First time I ever saw a jet, I shot it down." That's a badass thing to say, man. That is a definition of a steely-eyed missile man. First time I ever saw a jet, I shot it down. So we would have to be building the highest tech that we could. That we shouldn't. If we tried to develop tech, and we put all our money into tech research, waiting for miracle weapons, that's almost a guaranteed loss, in my opinion. For the same reason that the Germans lost the war. Delays and holdups, and it's expensive, and they can't make many of them. They're amazing, but they're just not. They're no match for. They're A+ products, and they're no match for hundreds of B- products. So that's kind of where the overall. This is a fun question. That's kind of where the overall strategic reality would lie. I think that we're going to have to accept the fact that number one, we're going to take 10 to 1, 20 to 1 losses, and that we should perfect and manufacture enough of what we have now. There's an awful lot to be said for the swarm theory, you know. For example, if they were to land and bring something like a fighter aircraft into the skies, or 10 of them or 20 or however many they can bring, they still have to bring them. And if we were to build 4,000 or 5,000 Raptors, it wouldn't be invisible to their radar, but then it might be able to do it essentially like a drone attack. The problem, of course, would be we have no orbital or space weapons presence. That's what I would put my R&D into. I would put my R&D into kinetic kill device, space-based kinetic kill device. I'd work real hard on this. I put a lot of money into that. I know I just said I wouldn't be waiting for miracle weapons. I'd be building a lot of bunkers and tanks and that kind of thing, you know. There's no such thing as a force field, and if you can get guys close enough, you can hurt them real bad. But whatever space weapon I built, you know, it can afford to be a close range weapon because they've got to come here to attack it. The problem is they're going to have greater reach than we do, so they'll be able to take out these railguns or whatever before they ever get in range. So you'd have to not only build railguns, you'd have to, and I don't think you could mask them. I think if they have this kind of technology, they'd be able to detect anything. So we'd have to hide them in plain sight. We'd have to hide them someplace where they couldn't get them, and someplace where they, yeah. Here's a thought. You know where I'd put all these railguns? I wouldn't put them in orbit because they could just smack them from orbit. I would put them on tracked vehicles, and I'd put them on the moon. And I would have them go all the way around the moon every 28 days, because, not to hide them, but if the moon is circling the Earth and you hide all of your space weapons on the near side of the moon, you think, okay, well, they can't see it because they're on the far side of the moon. But a month later, you're on the other side of the orbit, they're looking right at you. So what I would basically be doing is I would basically be moving my space-based assets on the moon so that no matter what time of the month it was, we always had this. I'm actually getting impressed with myself here. We would actually have the moon between our weapons and them. They don't have anything that's going to go through the moon. And then when they're in the terminal phase, we could then take the weapons, disperse them out along cover like rims of craters or lunar hills or something, kind of keep them hull down and just whack the crap out of them. It's a pretty cool idea, actually. That's the kind of thing that Arthur C. Clarke would take. He would take that one idea and turn it into a great novel. Just that one idea. Because that's a damn good idea, Bill. I have to say so myself. That's a real good idea. When they got to the surface, then you start getting into a common sense resistance thing. You can count on the fact. You can count on the fact that there will be numbers of people. I'm sorry, I get this kind of scalp kind of thing, and it's getting some dandruff. It's been bugging me for years now. When you got to the ground, you'd have to run this like almost like a drug cartel, because I guarantee you that there would be people who would be willing to sell you out in exchange for a leash and a food bowl. And mostly, I would take advantage of terrain. I'll tell you what would be interesting information to know, broke college student, and that would be, what is the gravity field that their species evolved on? Pray on your knees. Pray on your knees that they came from a lighter gravity field than we did. Because if they came from a heavier gravity field than we did, we're in real trouble on the ground. if you, for example, if that species managed to evolve, if such a thing was possible at 2G, I'm sure they'd be lower than we are, just built closer to the ground and obviously more robustly. But if they're built if they evolved out of a 2G planetary gravity, well, that means they're going to have to be able to jump over things at 2G, catch things that are falling at 2G, maneuver and be built to survive 2G. So pray that they're from a lower gravity world, because our gravity will mess them up. And then obviously just use the home field advantage wherever possible. You know, we certainly know pretty much every square inch of the land surface of this country. They would have to map it, and they wouldn't have anything like the knowledge that we know. I don't know if Carlsbad Caverns would be visible from orbit, but that kind of thing, right? Just that's what I would do on the ground. On the ground, what I would do is I'd start building a series of redoubts, fortresses, stockpiles. I'd build them all around the world, but I'd keep them closer to where the most expected point of invasions would be. Would keep them around, wherever I could, and hide them well so that we could just kind of pop out of these things and strike, and then just strike and move. That's the only real strategy that the weaker side has. Pick the moment, hit as hard as you can, and then get out of the way before the knockout punch comes back. Yeah, it's like Shadow, Supreme Headquarters Alien Defense Organization. So anyway, that's my first take on it, and we could do all night, but I want to get through the rest of these, so here we go. Eric Blake. Hello, Eric. I'm so fond of Eric Blake. I really am. And I don't know why. Nobody knows why. It's a mystery, complete mystery, one of the mysteries of the world. No, it's good to see you, Eric. Thank you. The man with the hat's in the office tonight. Come in if you know that you know that you know that you know. Yes, that by golly, we went to the moon. Yes. Well done. Nice start. So, Bill, a couple of things. All right. First, whatever happened to that moon special of yours with Jimmy Fallon? Did it ever actually air? And if not, why not? It did air. And I didn't link to it because I wasn't embarrassed by it. It just wasn't good. It just wasn't good. It was not about it was not about the moon landing. It was not. I mean, that's what it was sold as, and that's what the kind of the premise was. But mostly, it was Jimmy just talking to both sides, kind of like almost like a segment on the tonight on the Daily Show back when it was funny, with Steve Carell and Steve Colbert before Colbert became not a comedian or an entertainer, became a political shill who's been to Epstein Island, I might point out. So it was more of a kind of a let's sort of just talk trash about the people that believe in this stuff. And I didn't have a lot of screen time. I was sharing it with somebody else too, and that was fine. Now I do have to find the link for this thing I just did on Navalny. That I thought was rather good. That was just a couple just last week. But the reason I didn't link to it, Eric, is because I just was not particularly proud of it. I wasn't ashamed for it. I wasn't trying to hide it, but I wasn't promoting it either. So, and that had nothing to do with Jimmy. I love Jimmy. I thought he was a lot of fun. We went out to dinner with the crew, and I thought he was a great guy. He's fun to work with, and no big ego. So I had a really good time doing it. I just found that the way it was edited in the post, I just wasn't too super pleased with it. Second, how successful will the Mighty Musk's current efforts be convincing those skeptics that yes, we did go? What, in your opinion, will it take to throw this increasingly widespread denial into the ashbin of history? Could be as simple as just going again? Yes, as simple as that, as difficult as that, and that is the only thing that will do it. That's the only thing that will do it. Now, you will get probably 95% of the deniers if you show them, if you land with 4K video, they'll believe you. Because they have 4K video. So, yes, I think it'd be cool if. I think they should leave Apollo 11 site alone. I was actually thinking maybe they should land near Apollo 12 because Apollo 12 landed very near to Surveyor, so that'd be kind of cool to put 3 of them there. Plus, Apollo 12 is the mission that disappeared because Alan Bean opened the lens cap out of sequence, and this brand new color television set was staring right at the sun, and it cooked the electronics. So we didn't get any real video back from Apollo 12. There's not. Apollo 12 is kind of the forgotten mission. 13's not forgotten. 14 starts to get interesting with the golf cart. Then 15, 16, 17, you have the rover. But 12 is just kind of there. So, yeah, I would land at the Apollo 12 site and just show them. Oh my God! Fiery Waco for the win. This is the entire story of the body cam videos. This is the entire thing. Somebody comes, alien says we're invading, and Gen Z are saying no, you're not. Yes, we are. We're invading you. No, you're not. You're not. No, you're not allowed to do that. I know my rights. I know my rights. We're not allowed to be invaded. You're not allowed to do that. My God, we're invading. No, you're not. Is there really such a thing as a moon landing denier or flat earther who actually believes it? Yes, there are many people who believe it. Most of the moon landing deniers and the flat earthers believe it didn't happen because it makes them feel smart because they're not following the herd, and they've heard the tiny little bits of information that to them sound like, ooh, now I'm a secret mage now, I've got the inside knowledge, I've got all this arcane knowledge that nobody else has, and and all the rest of those sheep all out there believe, the official government story, but I'm too clever for that. So those people are easily convincible. I can convince 80% of those people. And going would convince another 15%, but you're always going to have the 5 or 3 or whatever percent that you could fly them to the moon and they wouldn't believe it. You could put them into orbit and they wouldn't believe it. Because there are some people whose belief system is so wrapped up with their emotional problems that they can't separate the two. This is my biggest problem with progressives, actually, is that there's no difference between their politics, their religion, and their hobbies. So they're not going to retreat on any of those things, because if they have to back up or admit they're wrong about something, then that's their entire identity and their entire social circle out the window. It's like, no. No. They just, no. So you got to understand, you got to triage your opponents in a political fight. You got the people who are already on your side. Don't waste too much energy on them, although they certainly can use cheering up and somebody to hand out the ammunition, tell them to hold the line and wait till you see the whites of their eyes. Then you've got the hardcore leftists that nothing will convince, nothing. You cannot break them of this. This is their entire psychological identity, and they are as unlikely to convert to conservatism as you are to convert to progressivism. Don't waste time on those people either. It's wasted effort. Go for the big fat middle that just doesn't know better. And we're at an advantage there because they've lied about us, but we mostly told the truth about them. So if we can tell the truth about our side, if we can get that message out, then we're the ones that can do the converting, not them. They've already lied to them about their positions and how generous they are and how good they are and what monsters we are. So truth is on our side, and entropy's on their side. And those are pretty evenly matched opponents, but I'm going to go with the truth on that one. Okay. Yes, I think, but your final line, Eric, could it be just as simple as going again? Yes, going again. Going again, and landing on the moon won't do it. We'll have to land next to one of the Apollo sites. We'll just have to. And then somebody's going to have to walk up in one of those bitchin' cool, although the SpaceX spacesuits are bitchin' cool for holding pressure. I don't know how good they'd be on the surface of the moon. I'm sure they'd have to bulk up for that. But anyway, yeah, walk up with your Hero. What's the GoPro at now? Last ones I bought were Hero 4s. I guess they're up to 11s now or something. Yeah. And by the way, and live stream it. That's how they'll know it's real. live stream it using GoPros, and they'll know it's real. You'll get 98% of the deniers will be with you once you walk over the hill and show them the bottom stage of the lunar module and say this is exactly where everything is supposed to be. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope that helps. Ray Juarez. Hello, Ray. Hello, Bill. Hello, Ray. Hello, Ray. Firstly, thank you to you, Steve and Scott, for helping me with my confidence. The backstage videos are great to watch. I get a lot of insight from the stories you guys share. Actually, and there's more, and I'll get to it in just a second. For those of you out there who are not members, we do a backstage show, Backstage Right Angle for members only. It's about an hour, usually about an hour and 15 minutes. And it's completely unrehearsed, and it's just us talking about our music libraries and, you know, and what our dog did and all the rest of it. I'm going to put one of those out for the public because it's really probably the single greatest membership benefit. It's just plain fun. We have a lot of laughs in there, and we don't take it or ourselves very seriously. So it's just three friends just kind of shooting the bull and chewing the fat, and they're really fun. And we've got them tomorrow morning. I have to be here at 10:30 tomorrow morning, and we'll shoot another set. And I have a bunch of back right angles that I need to get out the door. I've got at least 3 episodes that I need to edit, but that are in the can and have been sitting there for a couple weeks now, trying to get this thing out the door. Okay, moving on. I know that this is different than what you usually talk about, but I think you have more knowledge on mental health and how to deal with it than I, a Gen Z guy. Oh, what about that, Ray? Congratulations. Feel free to skip if you'd rather stick with the usual stuff. No, I wouldn't. For my question, I want to ask for some help with my depressed friend. He's usually very down and verbally abuses himself a lot. He also refuses to take medication for his depression. I have tried being a caring friend, but that has not helped him get out of the mindset he's stuck in. Do you have any advice for helping him or ways that I can change up my strategy? Thanks for all the insight and laughs over the years, Ray. Thank you, Ray. That was very kind. All right, well, I have some news that I wasn't leaping to share, like in the same way that I wasn't leaping to share the that moon landing video thing. It's not news exactly. I started the show by mentioning that this script's been on my back for 8 months, and that sometimes I would be, the wind would be calm and I wouldn't have any particular motivation to go forward. But then I said there were times when there was a headwind, and I underplayed that a little bit. I went through a period of avoidance, 5-6 weeks of avoidance of this project. I think it had been living with me too long, because this project has been over my head every single day. I haven't worked on it every day, but I can't go forward any day until I get it done, because I know that I have to get it out the door, and I can't do any of the other stuff I want to do. I can't do anything until I get this thing out the door. And you would think that would be enough motivation for you to get it out the door, but having worked on it for so long and having it be such a monumental project, I got to the point where it's like I just couldn't do it. I mean, it was just actively couldn't do it. I had a big headwind. And so so my ability to procrastinate on that, I was working on other stuff, but my ability to procrastinate on that went to entirely new levels, stratospheric levels. And it got to the point where it got so bad when I talked to my doctor. So I've been on antidepressants since 1993, so 40 years. Yeah. I will deliver these things. I'm happy to say, for reasons that I will get to connected to this question, that the reason we started the stream at 5:59 tonight was because I was just pounding out the pages. I'm pounding them out now. I'm just really knocking them down. So I'm almost out with this thing. But that procrastination was so bad, and the more I put it off, the bigger it got, the more powerful it got, which made it more intimidating, which made me want to avoid it even more. So I was feeling really, 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 really bad about that. And then the immigration thing hit with my stepdaughter, which I was sure was going to be a yes. I told my wife and my stepdaughter, don't expect a yes, expect a no. And I was telling myself to expect a no as well. But when the no came, when she second attempt to enter the U.S. with a tourist visa with 2 American citizen parents turned down, that's 7 years now that that her mom has not been able to see her daughter and in this country anyway, and it hit all 3 of us like a ton of bricks. So right after the immigration thing happened, Ray, I was at the point where I was just really done. So I basically called this psychiatrist back up and said, listen, I've been looking at some videos about procrastination and how procrastination is not laziness, because I'm here all the time. I was procrastinating on the scripts. I was here in this chair 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's not an exaggeration. I swear that is absolutely true. I would come in and work and do anything other than that. It just kept coming in. I said, got to do this. It's like, couldn't do it. That's a mental illness problem. It really is. I'm not being melodramatic about that. That's not normal. And procrastination is often tied to a lot of childhood traumas. I wasn't traumatized as a kid. I kind of wish I had been. I was mostly, I certainly wasn't ignored, but I was undernourished emotionally, let's say. And so you end up with this kind of lifelong depression and this lifelong lack of belief that everything will be okay. And you can learn that, and it's taken me 60 years. And now I'm that guy for my wife, and she's that way for me. But I don't have a normal emotional background. It's definitely atypical. So here's the latest news. So when this immigration thing hit, and my levels of procrastination and self-loathing for not getting this thing done were at stratospheric levels, if you'll pardon the expression, I called the psychiatrist and I said, listen, I wrote an email actually. I said, I'm at the end of my rope here. I have to get this out the door. I have to. And the more I have to get it out, the harder it is to get out. Usually, when the pressure gets high enough, I just crack and just get it done. But this is not happening here. And plus this whole other thing and so on. So she prescribed me some new medication, which I've been on for about 2 weeks now. Now, this is something that got my attention. It scared the living piss out of me, to be perfectly honest with you. But since you asked me an honest question, I'm giving you an honest answer. This is how you have to talk about these things, Ray. This is what you have to do with your friend, is you have to get your friend to the point where he can talk about things like this to people that he doesn't know, and get over the shock of revealing personal information that can be used to hurt you, and and the shame of all of it, and the guilt and all the rest of the stuff that rides along here and saps your energy. So she prescribed for me a new medication called Abilify, and that sentence coming out of my mouth is probably the end of whatever flying I might be doing for the ever in the future. Abilify is the first medication I've ever taken that's antipsychotic medication. And when I found out it was an antipsychotic medication, I I went completely freaking nuts. No, I was like, oh man, that's a whole nother level, that's a whole nother level. So my wife was interested, and I was interested, and everybody was interested in what this medication did, because it said it was an antipsychotic, and I don't want to be a psychotic, although I probably didn't have any say in that. So I think one of the definitions of psychotics is that they have no empathy. That's not me. I have plenty of empathy. And another definition of them is they cannot distinguish reality from internal fantasy, and I don't have any issues with that ever. I never hear voices. I don't see things. I don't have secret friends whispering in my ear. So this is more powerful medication to treat depression, and it really upped my mood quite a lot. I think a bunch of you noticed it. I mean, I was kind of coming in chipper, and now I'm getting work done again. So that's a result of the medication. That's the stuff I've been taking earlier, things like Prozac and so on. I've been taking since 1993. These are SSRIs, they're selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Probably the best way to think of this, although this is grossly simplified. If Lord Bios is here, no doubt I'd appreciate it if he correct me. But my understanding of it is, serotonin is kind of the emotional leveler. It's the regulator of the intensity of your emotions. It's serotonin. If you're low on serotonin, then you're gonna when things that would knock another person down and get them a sad day, it'll put you into the basement for 2 weeks, that kind of thing. So the SSRIs tend to smooth out your highs and your lows, and they do an awful lot to treat depression. You can still be depressed on Prozac, but you're a lot happier than you would be if you were depressed without the Prozac. That's something I can tell you firsthand. It stops you from going nuts. The Prozac does. It can make something like the immigration gobsmacking just into a series of really sad days, and not the end of the universe. But this Abilify is different, and I'm on the minimum dose of it. And it takes about 4 days to get into your bloodstream, really start working, 4 or 5 days. So after about 4 or 5 days, I started noticing two things. First of all, I started noticing that I was just in a generally better mood. And I've been downright chipper for the last 2 or 3 Strato events. But I also noticed that I was much more willing to do things immediately. Like, we needed to order something from Amazon, and my normal inclination would be, well, honey, let's just do that tomorrow. Can we do that tomorrow morning? Or tomorrow night when we get done? I'm just kind of tired. It's like, I'll just do it now. Why don't I just do it now? So it's addressing the problem. So it's elevating my mood, and it's focusing my attention, and that's because it works on a different neurotransmitter than serotonin. I believe Abilify mostly works on dopamine. Dopamine is your pleasure neurotransmitter. It's the one that gives you that kind of rush. You see, like when I see like the Blue Angels or the Thunderbirds flying overhead or something, especially if they're really low, or I see carrier operations or something, I just start taking a dopamine shower. I mean, I just slather myself in it. It's oh yeah, awesome, it's awesome. But one of the things that can happen to you when you've got a sort of a maladapted childhood is your brain is designed for certain things, and your childhood and your parents are supposed to get you to connect the right threads to the right sockets, that kind of thing. What I found out was that you can get a dopamine hit from procrastination, and I just want to say, I just got to say this because I do actually have a paying membership base here. When I say procrastination, I'm talking about on this one particular issue. I'm not talking about sitting around doing nothing. I'm just saying I couldn't get to this thing that I needed to get to. I couldn't, and I've been cranking out the right angles. We used to have an editor do that. We were running into real lean times back in January of last year, so I had to basically edit these things myself and post them myself. It's 3 hours a day of my time just to get the right angle out the door. That and then I had all the other history things, and Empire of Terror, which still hasn't come out, so people haven't had a chance to get paid back for that yet. Emotionally, So I actually have an appointment tomorrow afternoon at 2:30, and I'm going to ask for a dose increase. Now, there are some side effects, and one of them is weight gain, and I have gained 8 pounds in the last 2 weeks, and I am not happy about that. of all the things I've said on this show, I think one of the things I'm most, and I know this is gonna, I don't want to upset anybody. I don't want to insult anybody, but I'd always been a skinny kid, and I watched my dad put on weight when I was a kid, and I watched my friends put on weight when they got older, and I said to myself, I'm just not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be that guy. I've been getting heavier and heavier, but I'm not going to be the guy. I'm just not. And then 4 days ago, I got on the scale in the morning, and I saw 2001. That's what the numbers came back as, 2001. 200.1 pounds. And I'd never weighed 200 pounds in my life, and I never thought I'd get to 180. And that was a panic button effect for me. That was panic button. So I've been cutting way back on just about everything. I don't eat super well. I eat a lot of takeout food because I'm often here, and I'm just cutting back. And it turns out that the weight gain is one of the side effects of Abilify. And tomorrow, when I go in and talk to this doctor, I'm going to say, listen, if this continues, I would much rather go without the medication than be 30 pounds overweight, because I can't stand it. I'm 6'1". So my ideal weight, according to BMI, I think the BMI said 172. I'd be real happy around 177, and I could be perfectly fine with anything up to about 183. 177 to 183, right in there, I'm great. But right now, it's really bothering me a lot. As I feel it. It's changing the way I walk, and I don't like it. It's making my face fat. And I have nothing against that in other people, and everybody has their own weight and their own demons to fight here. 6'5", 170, that's actually a little low there, Scorch. But look, man, I was 6'1" and 119, so I've been a thin kid my whole life. And I watch people like my dad just get heavier and heavier and heavier, and I just said, I'm just not going to do it. Related to this, I got a flight suit back when I started flying gliders in '93, and I was probably around about 140 then, I guess. Still pretty thin. But I said I'm not ever going to get a bigger flight suit. I'm not ever going to buy bigger pants, because I've noticed that there's no end to the size of the pants that you can get. So 200 pounds in 2019, best shape of your life. Eric says he's 6'1". Wow. So anyway, I'm an endomorph. I'm not a big boned individual, and it really hurts me. Now I'm telling you this, Ray, so that you can tell your friend that the first step in him being happier is to be more comfortable being miserable. And that when you talk to somebody about this stuff, if you really go to the mother lode of actual truth and say things that you don't want people to know, not because there's anything particularly shameful about them, just because it's private, then that's the first step of getting out where he is. So, the verbal abuse is part of that whole thing. It's a voice that stays with you forever. I have managed to largely defeat that over the course of the last 15, 20 years. Once I got into the eject business, and once I started doing this and started having a membership base, then almost all of those particular pathologies of self-hatred and self-loathing, those have gone, and they're gone because of people who are watching the show right now. The comments I get back and the things that I hear and the response of people at speaking events, live events, it will destroy your lack of confidence. I don't know how else to put it. It will destroy your lack of confidence and self-respect to hear the kind of things that I've heard from you kind people out there. So I haven't had to deal with that for a while. But just after I got the Prozac back around 93 or so, I remember I was parking outside the Miami Planetarium. This was the last piece of work I did for the planetarium. There was they were bringing back Child of the Universe for an anniversary showing. That was Jack's masterpiece, 10-year anniversary of it, a 20-year anniversary of it. And I remember I was driving a stick at the time. I love sticks. And yes, it does, Eric. Thank you. And so anyway, I was parking my car, and I pride myself on being a good driver. And this time, I guess I was just distracted by something in a hurry. And so I had the car in park. I had the car in gear when I let my foot off the clutch because I thought I had it in neutral. And the car goes boom like this, and just doesn't go roaring off on the street. It just hit the parking bumper, and it was about the most minor thing ever. And I just practically at the top of my lungs screaming, "You effing idiot!" And every now and then I'm getting better at this. I'm able to catch myself by the back of the collar, and just kind of like, oh, whoa. That was the first time I ever dealt with that. What you mentioned. Verbally abusing himself. I just grabbed myself by the back of the collar and said, "Hey, you don't have to talk like that. What's the big deal, man? You didn't go run over, an orphanage. You just forgot that you were in first gear. Calm down. Take it easy." So, probably, Ray, the thing I would tell him, and you might want to timestamp this. Not for him, but for you to deal with him. I can sum up some of these things. First of all, if he's got clinical depression, that's a condition he's going to have for the rest of his life. And he better decide to medicate it, because if he doesn't, it's not going to go away. It's just going to get worse. The more depressed he is over the period of time, the more dismal your life becomes, the less happy you are. And that's that. You might as well, you're just in the lobby waiting for the clock to run out. So the first thing he needs to understand is that it's not going away. It's here, and he's got it, and that's the cards. The second thing I would tell him is it's not his fault. The best analogy I've ever found for people who have some kind of relatively minor mental illness or depression or high anxiety or something like that. But in the case of depression, the best way I've ever been able to explain it to non-depressed people, because people who aren't depressed think that Prozac's like a happy pill, like it's just like laughing gas, like ha ha. No, it doesn't even stop you from feeling bad. It just stops you from feeling that bad. But the second thing I would tell him is it's not his fault. And the analogy I'm referring to is I often think of this as being the same sort of thing as a diabetic. If you don't get your insulin, then you're going to go into seizures, and if you don't get your insulin for long enough, you're going to have enter a diabetic coma, and you're going to die. And nobody that I'm aware of has ever made the argument to a diabetic that they shouldn't take their insulin, and I don't know any diabetics who refuse to take insulin on principle. That's where I would go right off the bat with your friend. I would say, hey, buddy, you're clinically depressed. You didn't ask for it. It's not something you wanted. You've got it. It's not going to go away. It can be enormously... You can lead a normal life, and you can lead a happy life, but you got to work at it in places where other people don't. So, number one, you've got it. Number two, it's not your fault. You didn't ask for it. And number three, you have to understand that you are in the same way that any diabetic would be. Thank you for that, Scotch. I'll tell you, man, we all got to take care of it. Scorch, sorry. We all got to take care of each other, number one. And number two, seeing comments like yours are my only way of paying back the people that saved my life. There's this pay it forward thing is brilliant. The people who pulled me out of the murk, I can never repay them, and they, I just can't. But when I see comments like yours, I feel like I'm doing my very best to I'm doing something to pay it forward. So thank you for that. That meant an awful lot to me. So anyway, he's got to face it now. There's good news and bad news here. The good news, Ray, is that he's talking with you about it, and the good news is you're obviously a good friend. Because if you weren't a good friend, you wouldn't be bringing this up. And I'm taking your word for this when you say my friend has depression. I believe you. Sometimes people say, "Oh, yeah. Do you have any magazines, with about naked girls with like really big butts and stuff?" I'm just asking for a friend. So I don't strike it that way. But if it turns out that you are the friend, then that works for me too. The first step in getting over it is realizing that you've got it. And then you have to start finding the means of coping. And you can cope yourself to a very, very, very happy life. It's just never going to be automatic for you. Never. You're never going to automatically believe that things are going to be okay. Kids who are... I was quite surprised because, as I said, I was not abused. I was not in any way abused, ever. And I don't suffer from PTSD, but I was quite shocked to talk to a different therapist, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, who said that in her experience and in the experience of many professionals, kids who are neglected, essentially just emotionally ignored, have it worse than kids who are beaten up. She said, at least the kids that get beaten up by their parents know they're there. And I thought, wow, I guess there's something to that. Yeah, she said, yeah, if it turns out that they're beating you up or putting cigarettes out on you or all the rest of these nightmare horrors, at least you're there, and furthermore, you know where the enemy is. It's not inside, it's outside. It's funny. Roadrunner says, "I wasn't abused until I started the Stratosphere Lounge." You're right, my guy. That's when the real pain began. So the good news is that you can tell your friend in all honesty that this is not dealing with this in the 1800s or the 1400s. We're not even dealing with the issue in the 1980s. Once Prozac became available, it changed the world. It changed the world. And if he decides to take it, then he will find that he will stop feeling so bad. I remember this clear as day, and I must have been, I mean, everybody's, nobody's got the dipstick all the way filled, but I mean, I was like 4 quarts low on serotonin. I was like 4 quarts low. So I took Prozac, and then when I woke up the next day, even the next day, because it's not super fast acting, but even the next day, I remember waking up and going, oh, so this is what it's like. This is what it's like. Okay, yes. I mean, overnight, I had that sense of, okay. And you have to also accept the fact, you need to be grateful, frankly. You can't be grateful and happy at the same time. I would tell your friend to be grateful that they live in an age when there is, in fact, medication for this, and you don't have to be tied down to a bed with a stick in your mouth. Well, they give you the electroshock. The medicines become more and more sophisticated. They become more and more specifically targeted. The side effects go down. And when I realized the degree of resistance that I was putting up to my own work, I made a phone call, and I made a phone call, and that phone call didn't do it. I said, "I'd like something new, please. I just can't get this done. Stay on your current dose. Sorry, no." But when I called after the immigration thing, I was just so blasted by it, just so completely, just disheartened by it, and this, I guess it actually makes me feel useful to talk about these things. So she would say, when the day or two right after that, Deanna got declined, she said, "You don't have any thoughts about hurting yourself, do you?" I said, "No, I've never had thoughts about hurting myself. I've never come up with a plan to hurt myself. But to be perfectly honest with you, I'd be just as happy if I wasn't here. I'm not planning anything. I don't have a strategy, and I never have. But right now, the way I feel, I'd just as soon be gone. Honestly, really, I'd just as soon just not be here." That's a horrible thing to say, and it's only sitting here now saying it out loud that I realize what a spit in God's eye that is. I mean, the whole universe is composed of dead matter, and here I am, filled with life in this incredible society, but that's what depression is. That's what depression is. It's not rational. It doesn't make any sense. It's not something you can't bull your way out of it. You can't discipline your way out of it. You're an emotional diabetic, and you need your emotional insulin. And if you don't get it, you're going to get worse and worse and worse. And so the question isn't what's going to happen to you if you take it. The question is, why aren't you taking it? Why would you not take advantage of this miracle, at least to try it? I mean, honestly, when I first went in for talk therapy, November 7th of 1985, and I woke up crying. My feature film that I had done had just gone down in flames. Just half the money was pulled out by the investors. 3 days into the shoot, and I just had I was just done. I was just done with it. And this is where your friend's going to have to get to be, Ray. This is the bottom line, and this is the bad news. The bad news is this. Your friend is going to have to hit bottom somewhere. And I hit bottom on November 7th of 1985. That's when I made enough noise, and I said, I need some help. And my mom finally heard me, and next thing you know, I've got an appointment. But that was when. When I went into this office, at 6'1", I was probably been out of college by then, but I was probably 130, 135. I got to know this woman very well, and many, many, many years later, she said to me very affectionately, when you walked into my office, I thought you were a vampire. You were dressed in black, and your skin was so pale it was almost blue. Go outside, get a suntan. That's the first thing I want you to do. Go outside, get a tan, and then I want you to wear bright colors, white pants, red shirt, that kind of thing. And it worked. It wasn't all of it, but it was a start. The thing that really saved me, I think, well, I saved myself. That's the honest truth, Ray. That's the truth. I just woke up on November 5th of 1985 and decided to do something about it. And if I hadn't, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair. I'd be lying under a bridge someplace. And all of those firewalls and all of those afterburners and all of those history series and all the things I want yet to do and all the colonies and all of it would have never happened. They would have just been gone. Would have been quantum possibilities that were not ever realized. Your friend is undoubtedly got these kind of things. See, the funny thing about this sort of, when I say low-grade mental illness, I'm talking about things like, severe depression or increased anxiety or feelings of, worthlessness or whatever. I'm not talking about the kind of things where people are hearing voices or the walls are moving or any of these other genuinely horrifying things. That's why that term antipsychotic got so much attention from me. It's like, am I psychotic? I still haven't talked to her about it. I have that meeting tomorrow. But I'm not. I know I'm not. I have a great deal of empathy, and I don't have any trouble determining what's real. In fact, I pride myself on being really, really, really good at what's real and what's not real. But, I hit bottom, and I was lucky enough. Here's the last thing I'll say for you, Ray, for you to pass on to your friend. When I first went into, just session therapy, I think the second or third time I was there, this woman named Shatsi Kassal, God bless her, said, look, Bill, I'd like to tell you there's a magic pill for this, but there isn't. It's just going to be years and years and years of hard work. And you'll start feeling better immediately, and then you'll start feeling bad again like you used to, but you'll feel worse because you felt like you're falling now instead of just being the place. but you work on it, and you will get better, and you got to want it, and I wanted it. But at that time, she said to me in '85, she said, "I'd love to tell you that there was a magic pill for this, but there isn't." And then in 1993, I got a call from her. She said, "Hey, remember when I said that there's no magic pill for this?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "There might be." She was starting to see the results of Prozac on depression, on addiction, on any number of things. And so she said, "Come and try it." And yes, it was an enormous relief. Here's the close of the close. We all know from now that when Bill says, here's the last thing I'm going to say on it. Once I say that about 7 or 8 times, I'm serious. The advantage that you would have living now is that the Prozac helps you to have enough mental balance so that you could start working on all of the maladaptions that you picked up over the course of your life. Talking to your friend now, you didn't ask for this. You didn't do anything to get this. This is something that was done to you or not done to you, but it's kind of irrelevant where it came from. It's like complaining about the fact that you weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth. The cards you're dealt are the cards you're dealt. You either play the hand or you don't. And if you want to feel better, then play the hand, because you can discard the cards you don't like and you can pick up ones that you do. So, be grateful that that you live in a time when these medications are available, and the only medication that was available prior to 1990 or so was alcohol, and lots of it. Die as an alcoholic to numb the pain, So anyway, Ray, that's that. If you're comfortable with it, invite your friend to listen or watch the Stratosphere Lounge on Thursday, or come back next Monday, but it's more of a Thursday question. Just invite your friend to come back in, write me another comment, put some asterisks or something on there so I see it and make attention to it, and we'll have this conversation again with your friend listening. Not quite as much time, because people have already heard it so many times. But in any event, if you're one of these people that are suffering from this, and you got something from it, the takeaway is there's nobody going to come and rescue you. You're going to have to rescue yourself, and that is not exactly true. In fact, let me rephrase that. There are dozens of people that are just lined up waiting to help you rescue yourself. But in order to rescue yourself, you have to take the first step. You have to say, "I need some help." That's the hardest part. That was always the hardest part. It's always the hardest part of anything. It's just the admission. That's why the 12-step programs are so effective. Narcotics Anonymous, I was the only person in Narcotics Anonymous chapters in Miami, the groups I was going to, 30, 40 people generally the same 30 or 40 people. I was the only one of them that didn't have a drug or alcohol problem. Genuinely. I'd never had a drinking problem, never had an alcohol problem. I would sleep a lot, and I would use my imagination a lot. Those were my drugs of choice. But I had an addictive personality, and so Shotzi had the sense to tell me to go to Narcotics Anonymous meetings, and I said, "Well, why would I do that? It's the only problem I don't have." Have you been paying attention? These are the only problems I don't have are drugs and alcohol. I've never had a problem with drugs and alcohol. Go anyway. And so I went, and I sat through the first meeting with my arms crossed, didn't hear anything. I sat through the second with my arms crossed, didn't hear anything. Third meeting, I sat there, and then I heard I was probably 25 at the time, 26. And I'm sitting in this room listening to these people talk, and I'm liking these people, and then a 40-year-old black man stands up on the side of the room and put his hand up and said, "Hey, I'm Jim, I'm an addict." And he stood up and he told my life story. He told me everything that I was doing, not answering the phone calls, listening to the answering machine, windows closed, drapes down, knock on the door for the rent, not answering it, pretending I'm not there, all these things, all of it. And when I realized that this guy, number one, was sharing my exact life, and number two, had the courage to stand up and say so, then I stood up and said so. So at the end of the third night, I walked up there and I got a white chip. I got a this is the beauty of NA and AA. The things that they use to save your lives are not little gold coins or anything of any value. They are, in fact, the cheapest and most worthless things you can possibly imagine. It's all symbolic value. There's no value to it at all. A plastic poker chip is about as disposable as you can possibly get. There's no value to it. But I went up and got a white chip, which was the chip you get when you admit you got a problem, you know. So I went up and got my white chip. And then after a week, I got another colored chip. I don't remember them, but after a month, I got another colored chip. And I put them on my key ring. So I had them with me the whole time. And I could shake them every now and then. And I was with people who were hurting as much as I was, and we were all just taking care of each other. Pass this on, Ray. The people I met in Narcotics Anonymous for almost 2 years, present company accepted, of course, that group of people was the smartest, funniest, kindest group of people I've ever met in my life, by far and without any question whatsoever. Kindest, funniest, and smartest. Because funny is a defense against this. Virtually all comedians have really bad depression backgrounds, and most of the actors do too. So anyway, that's longer than I wanted to spend on it, but it's an important subject. And the reason I talked about the giant squid attack is I changed dermatologists. I had this dime-sized discoloration on my lip for a couple, 3 or 4 years. And I went to this dermatologist, and I have, complete body scans done every 6 months, which is not like some super cool machine, just like looking everywhere, just checking, And 3 times I went, and he didn't say anything about this. So finally, I got to the point where I said, I'd like to schedule an appointment. Okay, anything in particular? Yeah, there's something I'd like the doctor to take a look at. So I went in, and I told him, you kind of passed on this for 3 times, but it's irritating me, and it seems to be getting a little bigger. He says, well, I suppose we could do a sample. Yeah, I guess we'll do a sample. We'll see what it is. So it turned out to be either squamous or basal cell, and they had to do a Mohs procedure, and I had just lost confidence in this guy. I'm thinking I shouldn't have to call him up and schedule a special appointment for him to check something that I've pointed out 3 times already, and then convince him that maybe he should do a sample of this. That just doesn't lend a lot of confidence. So I went to a new dermatologist today, and the guy's amazing and really, really, really thorough, great guy. And I got shot with liquid nitrogen here. I got shot with it here. I got shot with it here. The liquid nitrogen. See, this is part of this. I don't know if I would have done this prior to the depression issue. But now when I see signs that I might be getting something that I don't want, I get on it immediately. That's not something I procrastinate about. I get on it immediately. Natasha's very different than that. But the thing about liquid nitrogen is it stings a little bit when it goes on. It's like lots and lots of little needles, but it's not unbearable. It's just kind of a sting, and it's cold. Damien Gershwin, Bill's more machine than man now. Yes, he is. He's more stomach than man. Bottomless Pete. God, the Simpsons were clever for 6 or 7 years. They just could never stop. So anyway, I got these things, and I meant to tell you guys about this. So I went to the dermatologist today. Um, if you have a little discolored spot, or if you got something that's a little flaky or itchy, you know, don't be afraid of it. Schedule an appointment. Go in, and 95 times out of 100, the guy's just going to say, "Okay, it's going to." It's just, it's lots and lots and lots of little tiny little needles. It doesn't really hurt. Stings a bit, but that's about it. And so I went in today, and also, I was checking previous work, so I'm sitting against the chair right now, putting my pressure against my back. I've been in this chair for the last 5-6 hours, and that's with two small little sample biopsies being taken off of my back because I wanted him to look at a procedure I had done a while ago. I'm not entirely sure that they did that completely right. And then there was another little scaly patch of skin, and that's all it is, man. It's a scaly patch of skin. And it'll stay a scaly patch of skin until you get it frozen off. And just keep it as a scaly patch of skin. Don't let it get into something that's going to cause you to, really freak out and void your responsibilities and your pleasures in life. If you've got anything, if you're listening to this program, if you have any kind of a medical condition that you're too afraid to know the answer of, I cannot tell you how strongly. In fact, with apologies to everybody else after this, sometimes I know when to end the show, and I'm going to end the show after this, and I swear I will get to the rest of them either on Thursday or next Monday, but sometimes I just got a real strong feeling when it's time to not wind down, but to end. So if you're one of those people that are watching this and you have any kind of a medical condition that you suspect, maybe you get like headaches or something, or maybe you're worried about something with your bowels or whatever, let me tell you this in the plainest possible terms. I just look directly at the camera and tell you this, okay? You need to call whichever doctor you're going to need and have it looked at tomorrow for 2 reasons. 3, really. Number 1, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, it isn't what you think it is. It isn't as serious as you think it is. And you're just telling yourself, my God, I can't face the news. I just can't face it. Well, go face it, because you're probably afraid of something that's not there. I thought I had bowel cancer for, I don't know, it was in my teens, early 20s, I guess, maybe, something like that. I wasn't happy with that at all, and I put it off. Turned out it was colitis, which isn't fun, but was treatable, and colonoscopies are something you can get knocked out for. Other people prefer to be awake because they view them recreationally, and I'm not making any value judgments against those people whatsoever. Perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But really, you just go in, and people are afraid of hospitals. It's like the first thing they do now is they give you a Valium, and I'm here to tell you, Valium is amazing stuff, man. Any kind of surgery, just about all of them now, the first thing to do is give you like a little Valium, and it's like Valium is absolutely amazing. It's really true. When you're on Valium and somebody says, I'm about to chop your arm off now, you go, okay, let's get her on with. Let's just tell me when it's over with. In fact, don't even tell me when it's over with. Describe it as you're doing it. I'm curious. What's it like to have my arm hacked off? It's amazing. So you don't even have to go through the anxiety, let alone any of the pain. We live in an age of miracles. Take advantage of them, because that's the number one reason is you're probably afraid of something that's not there. If it turns out that you're afraid of something that is there, then I would urge you to think about things this way. The only thing worse than getting a diagnosis that you have cancer, let's say, the big C, is to not get the diagnosis that you have cancer. Because if it turns out you have what you're really afraid of, whatever it may be, then it owns you until the day you decide to fight it. You're just surrendering. You're not even surrendering. You're just walking backwards. Just go. It's probably not what you think it is, and if it turns out that it is, then that day that you get this horrible news is the day you get into the fight. That's the day you enter the fight. And we're no longer in the age where cancer is a death sentence, automatic death sentence. Recovery rates are phenomenal, through the roof. Get it early. And if you've already let it go on for a while, then don't let it go on for another day. Do it tomorrow. I was not sworn to secrecy on this. In fact, I'm not sure I was told this in public, but I think I was. I'm going to go ahead and name drop it anyway, because I know he'd feel the same way about it as I do. So this is the final story of the night, if you've got some kind of medical condition out there. One of the three heroes of my life is Burt Rutan. He's just one of the idols of my life, not only because of his brilliance with airplanes, but because of the fact that Burt Rutan has allowed thousands and thousands of fighter pilot wannabes like me live out our fantasies to the degree where it's not only good enough, it's just damn great. Right? Burt Rutan has given a fighter airplane that you could build for the cost of a used car to anybody who had the willpower to either build it or even better, to buy one. So he's been an idol of mine forever, and he's a legend. He's a living legend. When I found out that he'd heard some of my stuff and knew who I was, he could have knocked me over with a feather. But when I first went to meet him, which would have been 2012, I want to say, it's 14 years ago. 12 years ago. He said to me, you saved my life, you know that. I said, what do you mean? He said, you did that afterburner about what you went through with your heart diagnosis? I said, yeah. He said, well, I listened to you, and you made a pretty compelling case, so the next day, after watching your video, I called up my cardiologist and told him I wanted to see him right away. I went into the doctor's office, and 45 minutes later, I was in the hospital. He told me that if he hadn't come in the next 14 days, I probably would have just died. He had some kind of a scar tissue growing around his heart, and he said, I wouldn't have gone. I hadn't gone. I was afraid of it. Hadn't gone until I saw your thing. You shamed me into it, and then I went, and it saved my life. And I guess it did. So there's that aspect to it. And finally, the one thing that I don't think I could face is not terminal disease. I could face a terminal disease. I couldn't face the fact that I have a terminal disease and I could have avoided it if I had done something about it. That's the thing I could never live with. That's the thing that scares me. It's not the diagnosis that scares me. It's what scares me is the idea that I could ever have something that I could sit there and say, if I had acted, then I wouldn't be in this situation. If I had acted, I could have prevented it, but I didn't. So I didn't. So for all of you out there who are hanging on to medical conditions that you're afraid of, I understand being afraid of medical conditions. I was afraid of the colitis symptoms for a long, long time. Finally turned out all of those things were true. It wasn't as serious as I thought it was, because I thought it was intestinal cancer of some kind, colon cancer, something like that. Number two, it was the day I got in the fight. Turned out it was just medication I needed, and it's pretty much gone away. It's just cleared up. It's not curable, but it's treatable, and it's just gone. I haven't had an issue with it for 10, 15 years now. And third, I had the satisfaction of being relieved of the fact that it's not what I thought it was. It was heading there. But it didn't get there because I did something about it. So, shame on you if you are in that situation. Just go and do it. So I'm just checking the comments here. We did have a couple super chats. I'm going to do those now so that people make sure they get their money's worth. If it's a big long question, I'll answer it next time, but usually it's just this. Lapco92 says, super chat, speaking of Cagney, when I was talking about Yankee Doodle Dandy, any package yet? I wasn't going to pester, but let me know. P.S. My granddad was born in 1898 and served in World War I. Look up Camp Donovan if you want to see Mars, LOL. Okay, thank you, Lapco. We're still waiting for 1, 2, 3. I haven't seen it yet, but it's almost undoubtedly in our box. I think Shelley goes on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, so that'll be tomorrow or the next day. Here he is again, Lapco92. What do we do when the last boomer in the deep state dies and the Alpha Centaurians show up with the Earth's reverse mortgage agreement? Well, we do what we do right now, obviously. We do what we're best at. We pass it on for the millennials and Gen X and Gen Z to pay. Not our problem. We're out of here. And then finally, I think finally, crikey. What that I have to tell you, crikey, that just cheered me up almost as much as the thing earlier. I've always loved that expression. I've always thought that when an Australian says crikey, it just makes me happy. It's the greatest expression. I don't even know if it's an expletive, but it's fantastic. Crikey. So there it is for $20 Australian. Hey, Bill, thanks, mate. Matey, all right. Appreciate the range and depth of the topics you managed to cover. Well, good on you, Aussie, and good on you in the happy land down there. I spent 3 months in Brizzy, and I just loved it. I just love the people. I love the country, and there's nobody on the planet that are more alike than Americans and Australians, and we're on the other side of the world. And Scorch says, it's like when a Brit says, bugger. Oh, bugger. I have to play, look up, seriously, Scorch, since you brought it up, if you want to see something that's just maybe my favorite comic actor of all time, his name's Paul Whitehouse. Do a search on YouTube for a show called The Fast Show, and look up Alf and Bugger, because it's a recurring series of sketches where there's this old man who's the unluckiest man in the world, and whenever these bad things happen to him, he always says, "Oh, bugger." That was one of those laugh to you crying kind of things. So, thank you very much, and good on you, mate. That'll do it. Oh, here we go. Lapco again. Super chat. Super chat reminder. There were only about 4. Thank you, Lapco. You're really awesome, you guys. All you guys are fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to the members for being members, keeping us going. All of these things possible, especially for your patience as usual. I think after waiting and having me being off duty or reduced duty for another 6 months prior to this recent thing that I've been doing, Empire of Terror, I believe, is going to be opening in about 2-3 weeks, and I will move mountains to get maybe a 30-day trial membership so you can see that and see all the other things I worked on. So I will do my very, very best about this. Wow, that's amazing. Lasco says this is about the 6th time you've heard about my NA talk and found it as entertaining and interesting as you did the first time. I heard it, keep telling it. I can't tell you how much I needed that also, Lesko, not because of so much the kind words, which are very nice, but I do worry about boring people and just telling the same thing again and again. I got this eczema kind of thing, and it's black shirts, not good. It's not progressive bad, It's not like it needs to be cleared with a shovel, but it's annoying. Yeah, thanks for saving Route 10, says Chrissy Taylor, and I say, well, and thank you. I said, I'll tell you what I told him. I said, well, you saved me too, Bert. I think I would have gone stark raving mad if there wasn't hope for me to have my own little fighter plane at some point or another. And thanks to you, I think it's on the desktop. If it's not, then I won't look for it. If it's not here, I'm not going to look for it. But I thought I just saw it. No. Okay, well, now that I've talked about it, now I have to. Hang on. This is what Bert Rutan did for me. He didn't give me this, mind you, personally, but he gave it to the world. Gave it to the whole world. Come on, you can do it. There it is. There's a young Phil Trick working on the star projector. Phil, I don't know if anybody has ever told you this, but you used to look like Jerry Lewis. And I'm sorry to be the one to break that to you. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. One more look. I'm letting the air out of my own balloon here, but it's worth seeing. Oh, I know where it is. Sorry, hang on. I know where it is. Talk amongst yourselves, please. Come on, baby. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Exciting, isn't it? You notice the way I said I have to stop the show because I want to go out on a really sharp kind of percussive note, and I want to just kind of fade to black kind of thing. Yeah, I remember me saying that too. But this is worth it, and the main reason I'm looking forward to it is because I want to see it again. We're getting close. We're getting close. Getting close. Come on, baby. Oh, this is so freaking tedious. Come on, Bill. Come on, Bill. Once I met Natasha, I have more pictures taken of me in 2 weeks than I'd had during my entire life. We're there. We're there. Oh, God. Okay, finally. Finally. Yeah, this will do. So this is what Burt Retenn did for me, and the members, and all the rest of you fine folks. Found it. Here it comes. Drop it into YouTube, which is generally a little more accommodating. That worked, okay. And into the other one. Yes, I actually owned that for a while. I genuinely did. Okay, I gotta get it. This one, hang on. And I flew it too. I flew the hell out of it. Create new. See, if I had an engineer, Mike Rowe has an engineer, and he's a real nice guy too. He's his producer as well. And then he could just say, "Yeah, where's that picture of that long easy?" And then he could keep talking like he's a professional and not have to stop the show and everything in order to get it. But nevertheless, here we are. Come on. Here it is. Okay, there it is for those of you on Twitch. That rocket ship was built by somebody else. That's why it looks so nice. But you may notice that the propeller is in the back, that it has a canopy. It's got a side stick. It's got a throttle on the other side. I don't have to watch the propeller. When I'm flying this thing along, I see nothing in the nose. It feels like a jet, flies like a jet. And when I was able to afford this airplane, thanks to the members of BillWhittle.com, it was 2015, I want to say, I would take that airplane, that's Van Nuys Airport in the background. I would get in that thing and I would go flying for the day, and when I would do just flying the regular patterns, at the airport, you would normally take off and then you turn your base, turn your crosswind, you fly crosswind, and you turn your downwind and downwind. But when I had this thing, I went up and I got to the point where I wanted my crosswind. It took off like a bullet and just went. Absolutely crazy good. Oh, speaking of Burt Retenn, and it looks like I will be going to Oshkosh with him for the first time since 2015. 9 years is too long. So he said he's going, I'm going. If he's going, I'm going. And if you're going, then we'll get together and have ourselves a stratospheric time. All right, this show's been made possible by the members of BillWhittle.com who put up with all this nonsense again and again and again for all these years and all these times, and I'm very, very grateful. And so is my lovely wife, and so are we all. And we will make public one of those backstage shows, because if you're not a member, I think it's not missing something. I say on the website that your best benefit of membership is that your best friends in the world are people you haven't met yet. That's always been the strength of this thing, is the community. It's just the quality of the people. I'd rather talk to you people than with the best people in the world. I'll never forget that line. I just thought that was the best thing ever. All right, thanks so much for listening and joining us, being with us here today. And I'll sign off on Twitch first, so we'll see you next time. Probably see you Thursday for the Stratosphere Lounge. Oh, how tedious those people are. All right, YouTube, take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you Thursday night. Okay? Thanks. Bye.